Hey y'all, this is week 7 video 3 and join me on this little jog as I talk about how endurance training programs can change our VO2 max. In this video, I'm just going on a quick short little jog to get my heart rate up a little bit, but if I were following an endurance training program, in order to see VO2 max changes, that program would need to involve continuous dynamic exercise that's going to use a large muscle mass, which would be like running, cycling, or swimming, any of your triathlete events, stuff like that, for over 20 minutes per session, 3 or more times a week at an intensity that is higher than 50% of our current VO2 max. In addition to that, high intensity interval training is also going to improve our VO2 max. And high intensity interval training is stuff like repeated sprints, short sprints over a certain period of time, and just all out effort, high intensity HIIT workouts, so you could say. While we know that endurance training does have an effect on VO2 max, it's going to highly vary depending on the person, their current fitness level, their genetics, and how they're training. In a training program that lasts around 2 to 3 months, you can typically see an increase in VO2 max between 15% and 20%, but this improvement can also be as little as 2 to 3% if you have a low genetic potential for VO2 max or if you're already a highly trained individual. On the other end of the spectrum, this change can also be as high as 50% for people who already have a low VO2 max or their genetic potential for a large improvement in VO2 max is already high in there. It is important to note in your training that if you already have a high VO2 max, that means that your training is going to call for higher intensities in order to increase that already high VO2 max. And on the other hand, if you have a low VO2 max, your intensity or your VO2 max will increase with not as high of an intensity training program, but increasing in increments from lower intensity to the higher intensity as your VO2 max increases. It's also important to note that genetics play a huge role in VO2 max, which is pretty interesting. And your genetic predisposition is going to account for about 50% of your VO2 max value. Also, really strenuous or prolonged endurance training longer than 2 to 3 months can increase VO2 max in some individuals by up to 50%, as I mentioned earlier, which is a huge increase. So on my little jog today, I didn't do much to increase my VO2 max with that one short run, but over time, if I were to follow a program, my VO2 max would hopefully increase at least a little bit. So thanks for joining, and we'll see you guys next video.